Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Talk Junkies, where tonight is going to be a very interesting night. If you follow Talk Junkies the past couple weeks, we've had some interesting things go on in the podcast. We've had Dan from the Constitution of Us, his Facebook page, on the show twice the past 3 weeks. And we've really went hard on the Constitution, the Second Amendment, and stuff like that. And I think tonight we're going to kind of get into that with the guest that we have on this evening with what Missouri's doing with their gun legislation. First, before I do that, I want to thank any new listeners that are tuning in to Talk Junkies. I appreciate all the comments that you guys give. Keep it up, man, because that's what makes me go every day. Just whenever I'm at work and I just see my phone and I see that notification that someone's commented on one of our videos, I truly, truly like that. I enjoy it, whether it's a good comment or a bad comment. I like either or. I just like feedback, so I greatly appreciate that. Without further ado, we're going to welcome a guest that's been on Talk Junkies quite a few times from the Truth, Money, Freedom podcast. Pat, what is up, man?
Hey there, Paul and Carl and Jesse. It's been a long time, guys. It's great to be back on. Thank you for having me.
Hey, anytime, man, anytime. I know you got some very important information that you're trying to get out right now, and there's no better place to do it, man, than here on Talk Junkies. I'm very excited. I'm not entirely sure how you want to go about it first. I know you want to get into some silver, right?
Yeah, Silver and Second Amendment Preservation Act. Preferably, we'll start with the Second Amendment Preservation Act.
Cool.
And you guys are in Missouri, right?
Yeah. Yep, we're in Missouri, okay. South Kansas City.
Okay, gotcha. So you're on the Missouri side of Kansas City and everything.
Yep.
Well, I'll tell you what. There's actually been, if it's all right, if I can, begin a little bit here.
Yeah. So before you do, I just want to let people know that we've talked about the Preservation Act, I believe, in a previous podcast with you, and we've mentioned it before in other podcasts that we did with you, but we haven't gotten to the point where we are, what you're about to talk about now. Where is that at, and where are where are we heading with that? So if you guys have any questions about what this is, and I'm sure you'll get into that, Pat, but we have done a podcast with Pat from Truth, Money, Freedom before about this subject.
Okay. The Second Amendment Preservation Act, it's actually legislation. It's been introduced in multiple states. It uses our language, which we're quite proud of. We don't have a copyright on our language for the bill. Ron Calzone and his attorney was instrumental in drawing up some of that language. But what it is essentially is hopefully a bill that becomes law that says the federal government's Second Amendment laws no longer apply within the borders of that particular state, the state in question. And we're not the only state to have this legislation on the docket this year. Last year, if you guys remember, we were pursuing this. The beer flu, shut down the Missouri government. So we couldn't pursue this. We couldn't get far enough to even get it into hearings last year. This year, we've been in hearings. And we're making it a lot further this year, thanks to the grassroots support and people on the inside working this. But what the Second Amendment Preservation Act basically does is use what's called the Anti-Commandeering Act, or clause, to prevent the federal government from coming in and taking Missouri resources, that'd be police officers, sheriff's deputies, state police, any resources we have here for law enforcement, to enforce their laws because we no longer recognize them in the state of Missouri. So let's say bump stocks. That's just an easy one. Arm braces. You guys remember that from the Trump administration on AR-15 pistols. Those have now been, by executive fiat, they've been rendered illegal by, executive fiat. And so what this would do is say, we're not interested in what you say your laws are in the Second Amendment. We as Missouri are using the 10th Amendment, which is state rights in the Constitution, to decide for ourselves what we get out of the Second Amendment, which is guaranteed to all citizens of the United States of America. So you can't do any more laws against the Second Amendment because there's no provision for it in the Constitution. You cannot make laws against it, yet they do. Most laws that come out of Washington, D.C. are wholly illegal. Most people don't know this, but it is a fact. And actually, I can prove it, but for time's sake, we're not going to be going through legislation and bills and laws that are totally unconstitutional. But that's what we're afraid of here in Missouri. Unconstitutional laws for red flags. For, let's just say, Carl, I'm picking on you because you're the new guy. Let's say Carl is on some kind of medication, And then the doctors and the government say, well, because Carl's on that medication, he can no longer possess a firearm. That's what we call a red flag law. That is wholly illegal. That can't be done. There's no provision for this. They have to amend the Constitution to make a provision for this.
Well, not only that, but if you in Missouri, you can have a cannabis card now, and you can actually purchase marijuana legally. And if you do that, you give up your right to own a firearm.
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah.
So, we're dealing with all kinds of squirrely situations at this point, from the federal side, even from the state side sometimes, like PDMC laws. The example I gave with Carl, being heavily medicated on something. But it doesn't take away his right, to own a firearm right now at this time. He could be on an antidepressant. He can be on blood pressure meds and still own a firearm at this time. The kind of stuff that's being proposed in states and indeed at the federal level would take away his right to own a firearm if he was on some kind of medication. Okay, so anti-commandeering is very important too. Let me explain that a little bit further, and then we'll get into where we are now. Anti-commandeering doctrine was basically put in basically to prevent the federal government's overreach, preventing a tyrannical leader from coming into the United States government and starting to do things that are wholly illegal. Well, we see that all the time now. We need to exercise the 10th Amendment now to save the Second Amendment for Missourians, because Missouri can't do it for the federal government. We know these guys are bought and paid for. They're bought and paid for so many times, they don't even know who their masters are anymore. And who am I referring to? The President of the United States, the Vice President of the United States, senators, representatives, the Supreme Court. They're controlled by corporations. They're controlled by special interests and corporations, and we can't seem to get a hold of them and control them anymore, even though they're supposed to work for us. Therefore, we have to look internally. Every state now is pretty much in this stage of the game with the economic collapse that's directly linked. I don't want to go into how that's directly linked. That's why we're seeing this tyrannical movement by our federal government, is because the economy is failing. We're in Weimar Republic right now. Those of you who have studied the Weimar Republic before Hitler took over, we're following in those footsteps. We have the same hallmark signs going forward of where our economy is and where that places us politically. And so don't look for 1929 United States. We're not there. This is a very different scenario that we're in right now. But if you take 1929 and put us in the Weimar Republic, most people wouldn't know the difference from what we're going through right now. So that's why the Second Amendment Preservation Act is so important, and not just for Missouri. Now, I'm appealing to people in Missouri tonight, but I'm also appealing to people in other states. If you have this legislation, start working it right away. In my opinion, you don't have a lot of time. So with that being said, if you don't mind, let me let you know where we're at now. We have passed in the House. This year, the bill is HB 85, House Bill 85, Second Amendment Preservation Act. It went through committees in the House, went to the floor, and was passed. There was a small amendment, a small change, instead of, and I'll tell you what the change is. If this bill goes through, the way the bill was previous to the change was that the person, or let's be more specific, the law enforcement person that actually worked with the federal government to take away someone's Second Amendment right, take away their gun, would personally be held responsible for that in a civil court. After the change, now the agency they work for is going to be held accountable. Even better. Not the person. Even better. So, yep. And that also leaves it open for a lawsuit. By the way, the language is, I believe, the lawsuit would be not less than $50,000. So it can be $50,000 and up towards the agency that takes away your Second Amendment right or does something to disturb your Second Amendment freedoms, as guaranteed in the Constitution of the United States. It's important we remember that part as well. So because it has passed the House, it has now gone to the Senate, and it's sitting in a committee right now, or a pre-committee. I'm not 100% sure which one it is, but for my intents and purposes tonight, it doesn't matter where it's sitting in the Senate, because I'd like to talk about Sheriff Arnott in Greene County, Missouri. I'm sure you guys are familiar with Springfield.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. I'm very close to Springfield. I'm in Christian County. It's a neighboring county to mine. So Greene County is where Springfield is, for those of you who are watching this video and don't know the Missouri geography. There is one sheriff that seems to be leading the charge to stop the Second Amendment Preservation Act. His name is Sheriff Jim Arnott, and he is the sheriff of Greene County. He's a very interesting man. Let me start with, I'm not going to be sure, and by the way, this is an interview right now, but it'll be a conversation in just a little bit because we need to discuss this, and with you guys as well. But what we have is the sheriff that has put up so many excuses not to allow this to go through. He is literally spearheading. He is the poster child, anti-Second Amendment, anti-SEPA. He is the poster child, working possibly with, I don't know this to be a fact, but it could be, the Missouri Sheriff's Association. Why, you may ask now? Why is one sheriff in one county stopping all of you from having your Second Amendment rights as given by God and afforded to you by the Constitution of the United States? Why is that, I wonder? One sheriff. He's getting an awful lot of federal money, gang, for his new big, massive prison that can house some 2,200 folks. He's getting all kinds of federal money for more sheriff's deputies. He's getting he's getting federal money right and left. It's a big part of his budget. In fact, it might be the biggest part of his budget. I don't know. But I think he thinks that if he supports the Second Amendment Preservation Act, which is where we're telling the federal government, no, thank you, on any Second Amendment infringements, that he will lose his funding. He will lose his legacy of building a giant prison, for the people of Greene County, for having more and more deputies on the streets, which he does with federal money. He does a lot of that with federal money.
Well, I mean, they have to get the money from somewhere to fund all those deputies and all that, right?
Yes, but here's my point, though. Your rights are being taken away because he needs to get the money from somewhere. Is that okay with you, Jesse?
Oh, no. I was almost sarcastic. That was okay, sarcasm that was coming from me. I was
about to spar with you, dude.
No, that was sarcasm. That was very heavy sarcasm. So
okay, gotcha.
Yeah, you didn't catch it. That was sarcasm. As far as like civil death goes, that happens in the United States because it happens all the time. You almost talked about God-given rights. Mm-hmm. Those are not like the right to, a lot of things people consider God-given rights. This particular one, as far as the Second Amendment and being able to own a gun, isn't a God-given right, because you can have a civil death in the United States, even if you have a non-violent crime and have a felony, and then you can lose your gun. Any rights to guns.
Well, technically, actually, an argument can be made against that. I'm not totally prepared to argue against that right now, but I will tell you, the founding fathers were very smart to put in that we have certain unalienable human rights given to us by our Creator. Yep. And the reason they wrote that into the Constitution is so that people like Sheriff Arnott could not take them away from you, because they were given to you by a higher power than government. And that's because the founding fathers themselves just, literally got out of a tyrannical government situation. They literally did not want a new one. They wanted to do everything they could to prevent a new one. Therefore, they said your rights come from God. But you're right. We currently have laws in the books that are federal laws. If you are a felon, you cannot.
It's called a civil death. In my opinion, that's what I talk about. It's they literally it's a civil death. So your civil rights are forever taken away, and you can no longer, your right to vote, right to own a firearm, etc. It's a civil death that the government's the federal government's able to place you under. That doesn't happen on a state level, but it happens on a federal level, that you can go through a civil death.
Yep. Understood. And, but that's another thing too. Sheriff Arnott has provided, lots and lots of reasons why he won't support the Second Amendment Preservation Act. Among them was, he said, we can't charge people under federal crimes anymore for firearms infringement. We'd have to do state, and in state law and in state prosecution and state jurisprudence, they often get off the hook with very little prison time. So I'd like to say that I happen to know a sheriff who happened to be in Christian County that also got off with very little prison time when he was embezzling money from the county. Sheriff Arnott, this is for you. Let's have you as accountable as I am to the law. From this point forward, let's make a pact, Sheriff Arnott. Let's you and I make this pact right now. I know you'll see this video. We all have to be accountable. You know who I'm talking about in Christian County. I don't need to say his name. He was my sheriff. He embezzled funds, got out after 3 months, $1.25 million, I believe. That's a good game. That's a great scam. Maybe I should go embezzle 1.25 million and do 3 months. Yeah, that would be good, wouldn't it? I mean, my God, why is it that the sheriffs don't want to be held accountable to the same law that I'm being held to? And by God, they don't, judging by how this, I'm sorry, I'm getting it's upset about this. But
what you're really getting into is a lot of America nowadays is it's all about who you know. Have you ever heard that? It's all about who you know.
Absolutely. And
because
it's wrong.
you end up being, no, it is wrong. It is very much wrong because it creates this weird hierarchy of people being able to get away with things with less, consequence than an average everyday person would be able to get, because they know the judge. Oh, they know the judge. Oh, I'm cousins.
The prosecutor.
Oh, I'm cousins with,
yeah.
whoever.
Yeah.
And that's not a fair justice system. And justice is supposed to be blind and all this. But it's really, it comes down to who you know and mainly how much money that you have. You're able to get away with a bunch, depending on the amount of money that you have.
For that sheriff to get caught and he's embezzling and only to do 3 months, I feel like we all understand that there's a serious issue and problem that's going on right now.
Absolutely. And why is that? Because of who he knew. Exactly what Jesse had said, where he was, what position he held.
But I don't even think it's who you know, because in most cases, if any type of sheriff were to do that in whatever county it was, they probably all know someone, but they're all looking at the same time. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, I'm sure there are people who are individual citizens who know someone, but it doesn't come out the same outcome. So I think to a point, yes, it is who you know, but obviously they're sheriffs.
Yep.
So,
well, that's true. They're sheriffs. And you know what? I respect the position. I do. I mean, sheriffs, I appreciate. What I don't appreciate is people like Joey Kyle, who can actually embezzle $1.25 million and do 3 months in prison and be out, and then go off to a foreign land to be, some kind of consultant to the U.S. military.
Yeah,
I mean, how does that happen?
Yeah.
So Sheriff Arnott is hiding behind something.
How is he getting all of his backing? Like, how is he how is one man spearheading something that could change the history of Missouri?
I don't know. That's a very good question. I don't know the man personally. I know him by reputation. I know him through other people. He's definitely going to know me after this video. By the way, I'm not suicidal, just so you guys know.
Oh man, it's that level of worry.
Yeah. So, but that's a fact. I mean, I got to tell you guys, this is really, really upsetting to me personally, that Sheriff Arnott, because, and by the way, I have to make an assumption at this point, because every argument he's put up against the Second Amendment Preservation Act could easily be mitigated, easily. But it just, no, we just can't do it. As long as law enforcement is being held accountable, then I won't support the bill. So yes, we can have the bill, but without any provisions to actually go after people who actually break the law. So why? Go ahead.
So it passed in the House, right, of Missouri.
Correct.
So now what are the next steps, minus this guy, Mr. Sheriff Arnott?
Well, he just seems to be the poster child for the dissent.
Right.
I suspect there's other people behind him. I don't know. I think Brad Cole, my sheriff in Christian County, might be behind him. I'd be open to having a debate with him. In fact, I'm open to having a debate with Sheriff Arnott as well, if he wants to debate me on this. We could go through the laws together, and find out why, he is so, let's just say, the opposition he's so vocal about. I really don't understand it, because for the very few things he had issues with, they could be very easily taken care of. But to him, it's nope. As long as law enforcement is being held accountable, we can't do this bill. If law enforcement is no longer accountable, remember now, Joey Kyle, Sheriff, Christian County. Yeah, he was held accountable for 3 months, for 1.25 million. Guys, think about it. We should all run for sheriff and embezzle money and do 3 months, right?
Is that a felony
Jesse,
level?
Come on.
I know.
Do the math, man.
No, you're right. Is that a felony level of money embezzling? I'm just curious. Or is that still on a state, or is that still on a state level offense?
I don't know because the etymology. Okay, by the way,
because as far as the civil death goes, which I brought up, technically over X amount of money should be a felony, and then you lose civil rights. Or a civil death through that, and he shouldn't be able to own a gun or be able to be in office, et cetera, et cetera. That goes down the line. So apparently, you said 1.3 million.
I believe I read in the paper it was 1.25 million.
1.25 million was not a felony offense, and
I don't know. He only did 3 months.
Doesn't sound like it. Well, there has been people who have had felony offenses too.
Well, he by
only
the way,
do 3
just
months.
so you know, for the record, so this is all straightened up, and this is Embley Post. He was given 1 year and 1 day.
Well, no, you have to do the 1 year and 1 day, because oddly enough, in as far as, so that sounds like a federal sentence is what it sounds like to me, because your attorney will try to fight for, like, if the judge wants to get you 6 months, they'll actually fight for a year and 1 day, because then you could get out in 3. But if you're sentenced to 8 months, you have to serve the 8 months no matter what. But if you're sentenced anything over a year, you could get out earlier. So we could only do like a week or two.
Jesse,
this very
you're a scholar
loopholey
and a gentleman. You know this. They gave him a year and a day so he could be out in 3 months.
Yeah, no, that's
exactly what they did.
That's happened so many times in the system. You see that all the time happen in these, like, whenever they're really like bad offenders, but they know too many people higher up. That's what they end up getting. They get a year and a day. So they could be out. Typically, it's sooner than 3 months, by the way. But
based on what you just said here, I mean, why not hold sheriffs accountable? Why can't we do it? For some reason, we can't seem to do it. The prosecution system doesn't seem to allow for this. When we have an anti-Second Amendment sheriff like Arnott in in Greene County, and yes, he's anti-Second Amendment. There's no doubt in my mind of this. And I'm sure that it will upset him that I say that, because he loves to tell everybody how pro-Second Amendment he is, but not when it comes to protecting you from aggressive totalitarian bills that are in Washington, D.C. All 3 of you are being affected by this man.
Oh, yeah.
And he's in Springfield. We're separated by 180 miles of farmland, guys, and he's affecting you.
Yeah.
So we need to. So how do we deal with this is the next question.
Well, I think there's always going to be someone who's on the other side, though. There's always going to be someone fighting against what's so important when it comes to this legislation. It doesn't surprise me that there's someone spearheading a campaign to try and go against this. But for the fact that it's the sheriff who's supposed to be protecting the state of Missouri, that's kind of surprising.
Well, he swore an oath, didn't he?
Exactly. Yeah,
he swore an oath
on the Constitution.
But the federal money is superseding his oath.
Right. So
he's a corrupt man.
So
anti-constitutional, anti-Second Amendment corruption. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You're good.
That happens so much, by the way.
This
isn't some fluke of some weird roll of the dice. This happens all the time.
Because we're outside the realm of. We're outside of. I just want you to kind of finish on where it's at legislation wise, and what are our next steps before we go any further on it.
Okay, gotcha. Right now, it's the Senate Pro Tem, I believe his name is Senator Schatz, has yet to actually assign this to committee to get out of committee to go to the floor. And so that's where it's at. So basically, that's what the call to action is. All right, you guys saw me get pretty angry here. Now it's time for me to calm down and tell people what they can do about this, because you can do something. We don't sit back and go, oh gosh, it's just corrupt government. We can't get rid of it. Whatever. Let's just go back to work and just live our lives. No, we have to fight. You fight corruption. And the way to fight this one is to call up your state senators. Call up your state senators. Tell them you do not care about Sheriff Arnott's opinion about the Second Amendment Preservation Act, because he actually has an opinion that is against your rights. Also, a physically typed and signed letter sent by good old-fashioned U.S. snail mail to Senator Schatz, telling him to please go forward with the Second Amendment Preservation Act and assign it to committee and get it done quickly. Those are the 2 things that actually could be done right now. Another thing And I will be making a video about this very shortly.
Does he have ties with the prison? Does he have ties with the prison that you were talking about earlier? Like any financial ties?
The Sheriff Arnott you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's getting all kinds of federal money for a massive prison in Springfield.
I mean, as far as his budget goes, but I mean, is there any tie to like going into his pocket? I mean, they got to be hand in hand. But if there's a paper trail on that, they probably hide that paper trail fairly well. I would assume, because it's like a CEO at some point, or not embezzling money, but if he has like some stock in it, you end up, being able to take away like a piece of it. I was just curious on that.
No, I
if there's any paper trail on that.
I don't think so. I'm going to be honest, because Sheriff Arnott will see this video. He will be angry, and he will probably put out a video or some kind of statement against it. But I cannot accuse him of that level of corruption at this time. I don't think there is any collusion with any corporations that actually benefit him for the construction of this prison. There's nothing I can find easily that would actually tie him to that. I'm just talking about the fact that he is probably worried about all the millions and millions and millions of federal dollars he's getting a year being cut off if he supports the Second Amendment Preservation
And that's
Act.
fine. He can do all this, and he's going to keep fighting. But like having videos like this and having you on the podcast and trying to reach Missourians on what they can do to actually change the course of history within the state when it comes to gun legislation. And this is the biggest piece right now that is present to all of us. So doing those things, Pat, and I'll put a link down below in the description on how we can reach out to our senators and and get their numbers so we can call them. And I'll
help you out with that, Paul.
Thank you. And let's say enough people do that, and then the senators get overwhelmed with that here in Missouri. Their next step is to put it on the committee floor, correct? And then they have to talk about it.
It's to be assigned to committee, and then the committee meets on the bill. They pass the bill through committee. Then it goes to the floor for debate or perfection. And if the bill gets changed at all, it gets kicked back to the House. I'm sorry. If the bill gets changed in the Senate approves the change bill. It goes back down to the House. They have to now approve it because it's changed from the bill they kicked up to the Senate.
And I'm sorry, how many senators are in Missouri? I can't remember.
30, I believe.
Okay.
Something in that range.
Okay, so at that point, there'll be a conversation between 30 senators, and they're going to try and make it perfect or whatever.
Yes.
But there's no need to make it perfect. It's already perfect. You know what I'm saying?
That's the point. And we're done appeasing law enforcement on this, because if this doesn't go through, and these draconian laws come from Washington, D.C. and smack all of us in the face, the sheriffs will still have guns. It's us that will start losing our guns. They will still have guns. They're not worried about themselves. And they'll be able to carry guns personally because they're commissioned by a law enforcement agency. We're talking about our rights here. We're not talking about theirs. Their rights don't get infringed. Ours do. And that's one thing that people in Missouri have to remember. What happens when these draconian laws come through from Washington, D.C. or from your state, it doesn't affect law enforcement. Yeah, it may affect the way they handle the law a little bit, but it doesn't take away their rights.
No, they still have
away ours.
They have bump stocks. They're going to have more than 10 clips. They don't have to pay insurance to have a weapon. They don't have to have a permit for ammunition. If you look at Bill HR 127, like we dived deep into last week, those are the types of things you're talking about right now. What people don't understand is whether or not it's Democrat or Republican. Right now, who is in office and what is in office is about to change the course of history when it comes to the Second Amendment. And a lot of people seem to be on board with it, but I think majority, and there's probably more that are not okay with it. And this type of legislation in Missouri that we're trying to pass is going to protect us against any type of federal regulations that are going to come our way. And I just don't see how this doesn't pass in Missouri.
Yeah. And once again, it's a very few powerful people that are stopping it from going through. And Paul, let me echo what you said. This is not just for people of Missouri. This is for people of Minnesota, people of Colorado, people of Arkansas, everywhere in the United States. If you don't understand what's coming from Washington, D.C., and if you appreciate having your Second Amendment rights, you had better get busy. Strange and horrible things are coming. This is what we do. We need protection. The federal government will not give us protection. Your senators, your representatives, your president, your vice president, and your Supreme Court are all bought and paid for. I'm telling you. I mean, maybe I've not been so passionate about this in the past, but this is a fact. They're all paid off. They're all paid off. They all work for special interests. They are not working for you.
I would love.
You need to do some. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Jesse.
No, because I was going to bring a little comedy into it. In all
Okay,
hopes
good.
of comedy. In all hopes of comedy. Is that all the politicians have to wear NASCAR jackets, like how NASCAR drivers wear, to where it shows who endorses them and who has bought them off, is what I really think. I would love to see that.
Yes.
Because
and
they absolutely
Supreme Court
are.
justices. Look how long the robes are. They've got room for all of them.
They got room for all the patches. They got room for all the patches from whatever media, like everything. I would love to see that because everybody knows it's happening. I think what's really surprising to me is I think most people know this. This isn't some surprising thing to the common man. We've all just accepted it. And we all politicians are bullshit. I grew up listening to politicians are bullshit. Everybody knows this, but this just comes down to that. Little bit of comedy.
So but to my point, we need protection from these animals in DC. We need it. And our state needs to step up to the plate. The Constitution allowed for it if it came to this point. It's time for us to act. The 10th Amendment is there for us to actually shore up the Second Amendment, the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, Third Amendment, if you don't want, people housed in your home that happen to be soldiers or law enforcement. I mean, study the 10 Amendments and look what you're losing. Jurisprudence. We just talked about how Joey Kyle absolutely skated on a massive embezzlement conviction. And he was a sheriff. He should have done 20 years for that, for breaking the trust of the people. At what point, Jesse, you had a great point there, and I'd like to expand on that just a bit. But why is it we are so accepting of all this corruption with our officials, with our public officials, the people that we trust? Why are we trusting them anymore?
Because I grew up knowing that there's no trust in them. They're out for their own, but yet you still go and vote for them, and you still do this, and we just keep fueling it. And there is no other option. There is no new system to have somebody put in a position of power that isn't corrupt. And even the ones that aren't corrupt go to the wayside, and honestly probably become overlooked because you're just so used to being like, oh, you're a politician, well, you're just corrupt as shit. So that's what it is. Even though they might be of full just actually trying to do the good thing, but that's not how my generation views it at all. Everybody sitting in this room with me right now probably has the same feeling as me, is that we all know politicians are bullshit to the majority of whatever they're trying to put across. They don't ever do what they're really after. They're not after the benefit of the common person. They're after the benefit of themselves. Simply put,
Well, it comes down to people who are uneducated, and we're all uneducated when it comes to the Constitution.
And they make it difficult. And they make it difficult to start learning these laws too. But which, Pat, I'm sure you realize this. Talking to even a partially intelligent person on this matter, but then you started getting into litigation and the terminology and everything, and all of a sudden it's a new language to them.
It is.
And it's just not.
It's called corporate law.
I know. It
or
throws
maritime law.
And
common law is where we came from.
And heaven forbid, they just put out some general morality to where they're like, hey, everybody benefits from this, and then the higher ups don't have as much power. And they'd be like, all right, that sounds great. But now, they have to form fit and weird, snake tongue their fucking way around shit to make it sound like it's good for you when everybody else loses their freedoms. And the politicians, the corporations, what I like to call the 1%, are the ones that are just skipping to the bank. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think
just skipping to the bank with their money. I don't know a better way to put it.
But they do all these things, and they became so conniving and so good at it that we're in the state of where we are right now. But honestly, and what it comes down to is the individual. And Pat, someone like you who is so deep in it, and you're so passionate about it, and you actually want change. You're doing your duty to the Constitution to try and make change for the better and for the betterment of everyone through the Constitution and what the Constitution says, the foundation that gives us those rights that you talked about earlier. Unfortunately, we have a mass population that doesn't do that because they're so comfortable with the way that they live, how the government has built the situation that we're in right now. That's kind of what we're facing. They made it so convenient, like Johnny says, when it comes to pain and pleasure. And they give us all this free shit, and the way that they spiel it and all that stuff, they make it look so beautiful to where no one's going to question it until they come up with legislation like this when it comes to banning assault weapons or AR-15s, where it starts to make some people question it. And those type of people that are going to question it are going to turn to videos like this and be like, well, damn, man, these guys are right. I need to actually do my due diligence when it comes to the Constitution. It's not up to these crony politicians that are debating it every day, and we hope that and pray that they're going to pass some sort of legislation. It's up to the people, man. It's up to the people. Like Dan said when we were on the podcast last week, if we want change, man, it's the people that make the change. We're the ones who start not necessarily a revolution, but when it comes to gun legislation, if the majority of Missourians want it, then that's what happens, man, and we enact it. We don't need to call our senators and say, hey, please give us our gun rights.
Yes, we have to, unfortunately, because that's the way the system is set up.
For sure, but it was never intended that way. It was never intended that way. It's we, the people, and we gave that up, and we have to get that back, is what I'm saying.
That's correct.
As opposed to like, and sorry, I'll make it short real quick. As opposed to getting off this podcast tonight, and it's very important that we're having this podcast, but as opposed to doing it, getting that number from you, Pat, or I can find it out, and calling my senator tomorrow and actually trying myself to do it. As opposed to waking up and not doing anything at all. That's correct. That's the most important thing.
Yes, it is. This is a call to action, by the way. Yeah, this video may get some people fired up like I am. This is not a joke to me. I have worked very hard along with Ron Calzone, Aaron Dorr, Jimmy D, and then someone who's not with us anymore, David, or we called him Strong Horse. We have worked very, very hard. And what we're trying to do is leave this place better than we found it, to leave more freedom than we came into. And holy crap, when I'm being stopped by a sheriff in Greene County because his convenience, his federal dollars trumps my rights, I get angry. Of course I get angry. And like I said, guys, you should be angry too. Yeah, he's closer to me than he is to you, but he's affecting you guys as well. But you're right. The founding fathers said, if we did not fight for it constantly, corruption would take over the system. It has. It's everywhere. Corruption's everywhere. Now, I work with very honorable, very good people at the Missouri state government. I can't say enough good about Jay Taylor. I have Jared Taylor. I have talked to him multiple times on the phone. He is my representative. He has always made his office and his time available to me. I've got Eric Burleson, my senator, same thing. But like I said, it's really strange how one person can stop the whole process. That's why I'm beginning to think this is not something that someone's telling me, okay, we got to look out for this senator and this senator and this senator. We got problems with this senator. I don't know that, but I'm starting to get the feeling that there's some senators that are also trying to block this, but they're hiding behind the shield known as Jim Arnott, sheriff of Greene County, because he has decided to wear the target right now. He's the poster child, anti-SEPA, anti-Second Amendment. And so we're going after him publicly, but there's no reason to call his office. You're not going to change his mind. Ron Calzone has tried very hard to actually get him to see reason on this. He absolutely is opposed to SEPA if there is any ramifications for any law enforcement officers if they break the law. This is the problem with Arnott. So basically what we have to do is break through it by calling our senators and say, literally, we don't care what Sheriff Arnott says. He's wrong, I'm right. And you're not going to take his wrong to take away my right to the Second Amendment, my right to bear arms, just because he's wrong.
Do you know what's sad about this, though? So, and I don't know how true this is, but I'm a server at a restaurant here locally in my town, and a group of sheriffs came in, and I was just curious about what their thoughts were on this legislation. So I asked them about it. I was like, "So, what are your thoughts about the legislation that Missouri is trying to pass when it comes to gun rights?" And they're like, "Yeah, we're for it." They're like, "But if it does pass, like if the feds come in, we're not going to do anything about it. Like the feds, the feds can
still come in. That is correct."
And they're like, "We won't do nothing."
That's correct. That's correct. They cannot assist the Fed to, basically enforce any federal Second Amendment law, or I'm sorry, laws against the Second Amendment.
Well, no, they're saying
that's correct.
No, they're saying that like if you called the cops, they said they wouldn't come if the feds were trying to arrest you for what they passed for on gun legislation.
Well, yeah, but understand that, but also keep in mind there's provisions in this bill for going after the Fed legally, and the Fed will have to pay for your time in court as well.
Good.
So I mean, this has all been taken care of, gang.
Good.
This has all been thought of, and yes, if law enforcement wants to play this scuzzy little game because they want to be their little Nazi goose-stepping soldiers, it's the only guys with guns out there, well then thank you very much. Please tell us you support Hitler openly so we'll know not to vote for you. We need to get you out of office if that's what your intention is. Sheriff Arnott, I mean, you're acting like Hitler did. I mean, I'm not going to compare you to Hitler, but I'm going to say that you're doing a lot of things he did.
Too many people do. Too many. It's it's overdone with that. As far as the comparison to that, I just want to bring something up really quick. Something that has always resonated with me as far as my dislike for the federal government in general, as of lately, not where it initially came from, because the federal government initially came from a place of protecting the people from tyranny. What you're talking about with the Constitution. And now the federal government comes up with just all these laws that inhibit you from freedom, basically. And I don't know if I've said this on a podcast with you, but I'm like, where laws come from is simply a problem that the government can't solve. So they go, okay, we're going to make it a law. And if you do this, now it's punishable. Like anything, you go back as far as like, we can't solve this problem. Drugs is a really easy one. So like, drugs are a problem for people, so we need to make it illegal, and then we'll punish them. And then out of punishment, then it will create the solution. They cannot come up with a really good solution to a problem. That's where laws come from, in my opinion. The Constitution is not laws. It's protective rights for individuals.
Right.
But now you have so many more and more laws come in where I'm like, why is my government, who has so much access to so much money, so much resources, start solving these problems? Like, why are they not able to solve these problems? That's all it is. It's a problem that needs a solution. Not just simply put, oh, I'm just going to punish you because you do this. Why not get to the origin of it? Nothing about our government especially federal government, ever wants to get down to the root origin of... You
mean the CIA drug running? Is that what you're getting
at?
I
mean, you could get down into a bunch of it. But what I'm talking about is laws in general.
CIA to get rid of that one.
Yeah, no, I know. What I'm trying to get at, I hope I'm not being too big here with this, but all laws for me is there's a problem in society and we cannot solve it. People run stop signs and hit another person. So we need a law that tickets you if you run a stop sign. That has nothing to do with driver awareness or making a better driver. Do you see what I'm saying? Laws are a temporary solution to a long-term problem that never really gets solved, is how I've always viewed it. Like, especially whenever it comes to gun law. Coming back to gun law. So much of the left side of it go, look at all the school shootings and these terrorist attacks, so we just need to outlaw guns. I'm like, well, you're an idiot, because that's not how that shit fucking works. Is just getting rid of guns doesn't fucking solve the issue with the person who's doing the act in the first place. Like, it's a temporary solution to a long-term problem. And all you end up doing is incarcerating people. Like, I'm pretty sure, I don't know if this has changed over time. This might have been like a 2008 study that I saw, that the United States is 1% of the world's population and close to 25% of the world's incarcerated population, because we have so many laws, because we just don't have apparently intuitive enough minds to come up with solutions to the societal problems that are happening in the United States.
Follow the money.
And I know it. A lot of it comes down to where people are able to make money. Oh, Johnny's handing me something actually here. In September 2018, the incarceration rate of the United States of America was the highest in the world at 716 per 100,000 of the nation population.
Damn.
So,
all right, thank you, fact checker
so
Johnny.
22%.
He's in the background, man. He is working for us. All right.
So as of 2013, 22% of the world's population is, or 22% of the world's prisoners are in the United States.
Yep, I know it was a huge number.
That's ridiculous. You know what? All that shows me
money in incarceration.
Oh, yeah. Well, we had corporatized prisons, what honestly coming down to the sheriff that you were talking about, because there's money in people suffering. I'm sorry,
yes,
there should be no profit. I'm sorry. If you have any morality whatsoever, if you're making money off somebody suffering, you're a fucking piece of shit. I'm sorry. You're a piece of shit.
Sheriff Arnott, I'm sure you meant to say a big piece of feces is what he meant to say, Sheriff Arnott.
Yeah. I cuss on here all day. I don't
care.
Carl, do you have a question for Pat?
I respect your office, Sheriff Arnott. Just I don't respect you.
Yeah.
Well, no, to Jesse's point, what would be the issue with guns then? You're saying laws fix problems. So
No. Laws are a temporary fix to a problem that they're trying to solve.
So like school shootings, that's
where everything stemmed from. That's where as far as gun control happens, it all stemmed from school shootings, if I remember right, unless I'm wrong.
Oh yeah, no further. Yeah,
that was the big one. But nobody. So everybody go, oh, just take away the guns, right? Well, that's a really stupid way to look at an issue, because you're not looking at the individual doing the shooting. You're not looking at the mental health of the individual that's doing the shooting. You're not looking at, oh, maybe they came up in a horrible background and their parents molested them and they had to watch their sister get molested as they grew up, and their sister committed suicide, and you literally have nothing to live for because you grew up in this darkness. And then now the gun is a means to an end. You can't take away the gun and think they can't still think that way. That's a very horrible temporary solution to the acts that are going to happen. Because people who do evil, I really think every human being is born completely innocent. I mean, there's a couple cases where this might be refuted. But as far as my research goes, early childhood is an extreme portion. And if you have a really bad childhood, you end up doing bad things. And if you're using this as an excuse, especially the liberals, to take away guns from everyone to prevent this, I'm like, you're supposed to be the caring side of the government, right? You should be worried about their mental health, not whether or not they have a gun or not.
Yep.
Whether or not, no, because you should be for their Second Amendment right to own a gun. But hey, I'm worried about your mental health now. Now I want to get you counseling and everything. If you've had to go through a bad past, nobody has a great childhood with loving parents and I shot guns with my grandparents and everything and has that, and then all of a sudden you want to go and shoot up something. No, it stems from something else, is basically what I was getting at. Laws are such a bullshit way to look at a big problem and make it seem so small and then take away everybody else's freedoms and then go, oh, well, that'll fix it because these crazy people that society has created, and we won't care about their mental health at all, but we're just going to take away the guns to where they can't hurt anybody. Guess what? They'll probably fucking find a way to hurt other people.
Oh, yeah.
Whether guns exist or not. This is such a poor excuse, in my opinion, for any anti-Second Amendment. I'm sorry, I probably just went off on my own rant there. But
that's all right. That was an excellent rant, and it came to an excellent point. Look at England. They did outlaw guns. And they're stabbing each other to death out there. They're throwing acid in each other's faces.
No,
I mean,
the burglary.
If they make acid and knives illegal, which they did make knives illegal, you'll just start throwing rocks at each other.
No, because you're not hitting. This is my big thing. You're not hitting the root origin of the problem and solving the problem.
Because they don't want to.
No, because honestly, it fuels separation, tribalism in America, making sure people make sure they're separated and don't.
I think what they the end goal is they never want us to get along. And what truly is the goal. And if you listen to Bill Gates, and he's a big player in this, maybe he's not. After talking with David Icke and having that conversation with him and understanding what the entity is that rules this realm. And I'm not saying that he has it right, but from what I can gather, what I believe is truly happening right now is they're trying to get these vaccines to come out. They're going to make people more immune to all these sicknesses, and you won't get sick. None of us will get sick. And you know what you're going to be able to do? You're going to be able to labor from the time you're 20 years old till the time you're 60. And you're going to be able to just make this decent wage and just live for these people just to be rich and even more rich. And they're going to create more laws. And all we are to them is a number to them. And we're cattle. We're literally cattle, and we're just being moved around. We're pawns. And I'm not saying there's like we still have opportunity. I think, if I want to make it bigger in life, I can run for Senate and maybe not become corrupt. Maybe I would become corrupt because they threaten my family. I don't know. But what I'm saying is, from what I see, that is their goal. They're going to continue to create these laws because if you follow the money, you see that the prison system, you make money. Anything that they do, they're making money off of it. That's your answer right there. They're making money off of us. Our Social Security number, when you're born, from the day that you're out of your mother's womb, you are money to them. You are a laborer. That's Bill Gates. He was 20-1 for these third world countries. 20-1 investment is what he said. That's what the vaccines did. It's a 20-1 investment. That's how he got people to invest into his vaccine. Because these people will no longer get sick and they'll be able to work. He said it on live TV.
Yeah, I actually have a different take on that. I don't want us to stray too far.
Sure.
But my take is Bill Gates wants to depopulate the planet.
Yeah, I'm not saying that within those vaccines it wouldn't make you sterile. You know what I'm saying? Like, I completely agree with that too. But at the same time, they can't have everyone die off, because then how are they going to continue to create all this wealth and all this stuff? I mean, maybe they already have it all, but...
Yeah,
I know a lot of people who are listening to this right now might think that exactly, Pat, what you just said sounds crazy, but there is so much money in death. And just like how I said there's money in incarceration, there's a reason why the highest grossing or the richest nation in the world has the highest incarceration rate, because it makes money. You make money off suffering. We somehow, this is so sad for me to say this as an American, but our society has found ways to make money off suffering. And we realize that actually you make more money off suffering than even giving people pleasure. Because if you're like, especially whenever it comes to like Big Pharma. So, man, I hope I'm not going off on a weird tangent now. So like Big Pharma, and you look at people who are diabetic and looking at the increase in diet, like you were suffering with a disease, being a diabetic, and well, you have to live, right? So you're going to have to pay us however much money we decide to charge for insulin. So then they just jack that price up. That happens all the time. You see the, oh man, capitalism makes money off suffering, from Big Pharma to prison incarcerations to all of this. We have somehow found a way that human beings are like make us our money. And you talk about like depopulate, like the Bill Gates, like where does Bill Gates makes his money from that? I'm just curious. Like what's your theory on that? Yeah, depopulation.
Vaccines to do it. He's been doing it in Africa for nearly 30 years now. Now he's doing it to the rest of the world. He is hooked in and hooked up with some of the world's most dangerous people. You know, the Rothschilds, for instance, the royal family of England, who all believe in depopulation, by the way. We're talking about an elite class of people. Actually, you know what? Let's not do that tonight. Let's do that another time.
For sure.
Let's keep on task here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'd like to finish up here with the Second Amendment Preservation Act and then move on to Silver Squeeze, if you guys don't mind.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm asking folks to do is, first of all, check out Truth, Money, and Freedom podcast, because I'm gonna put out some videos here in the next day or two with evidence of what I'm talking about, with Sheriff Arnott getting federal money, lots and lots of federal funds, and all sheriffs do. I'm just saying he seems to get a lot more than your average sheriff. And maybe that's why the Missouri Sheriff's Association made a quick call to their friend Jim Arnott and said, you need to be the poster boy. You need to be the one to shut this down. You need to lead the opposition against people's Second Amendment rights in Missouri. You need to stand up and be that guy, because you're getting so much money from the Fed. So it has to be you. Maybe he's doing it based on ideology. I don't know. I've not talked to him personally, but I know people who have personally talked to him. So that's where I'm getting my information from, is people who have talked to him personally. So basically, here's what we do, gang. We don't attack Sheriff Arnott. We are not going to change his position. So what we do is we call our senators and say, we don't care what Sheriff Arnott wants because he is wrong. He's wrong, and we are right. We want our Second Amendment rights, whether Sheriff Arnott wants us to have them or not. Whether his convenience, is somewhat, disturbed or altered by us having our rights, we don't care. It's his problem, not ours. We're guaranteed these rights by the Constitution. And if one man is standing in the way of our rights to the Constitution, it should be a fairly easy process, guys. Calling your senators, tell them, go forward, get it done. So we call our senators, we write a letter to Senator Schatz. Paul, I will get you all this information to link down below in the description section.
Thank you.
We ask him to go forward pressing this through committee right now. No more waiting. No more holdups from Sheriff Arnott to the Missouri Sheriff's Association. No more holdups. We don't care what they want. It's not an issue. We're talking about the people of Missouri, not a tiny little organization of 12 people in a 501c3 like the Missouri Sheriff's Association is. We don't care what they want, okay? So we need to let our senators know this. And then on top of that, everyone needs to call their respective sheriff and get on record. Are you supporting SEPA? Are you not supporting SEPA? And we need them to contact Ron Calzone directly so he can color in his county map for the state of Missouri so every voter in Missouri knows where their sheriff stands. Guys, this is a time to take a stand. The work must be done. And Ron Calzone and myself and Jimmy D can't do it all. We need our, our grassroots support. I'm the grassroots guy. I am out there doing the work. I'm doing the yeoman's work. I need others to help me do the yeoman's work. Call our sheriffs. We need to get them to actually answer yes or no. Are you for SEPA? Are you against SEPA? Or if you don't have an opinion, that's fine too. But that doesn't go through you. We want them to go directly to Ron Calzone. So we'll get that information posted at the bottom of this video so people can contact sheriffs can contact Ron Calzone directly. So that's the call to action here.
You never got into any kind of detail about SEPA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you just briefly, because you've said that multiple times, but I don't even know the acronym.
Oh, SEPA, Second Amendment Preservation Act.
Okay, cool.
Okay. I didn't even know the acronym. So just to get that out there. No, you're fine.
We're Missourians.
Yeah.
So that's what it means, is Second Amendment Preservation Act.
Pat, I got a question for you.
Go ahead.
Something Jesse was talking about earlier kind of popped in my head when he said it, as far as they're attacking, they just make a law. When he was going on about that, they think they just make a law. Right there, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
There we go.
They just make
I can hear you better now.
They just make a law to fix something that's not broken necessarily. And at one point, Jesse, you were saying, focus on like mental health, right? And so I know, like Johnny, like I said, I don't know if it falls in this category of being the devil's advocate. Is there any legislation that you would accept for Second Amendment? Because I know, like Dan last week, he said Second Amendment is the Second Amendment. There's no legislation that should go against what the Constitution says. There's people that say background checks shouldn't be a thing. Like HR, was it 127?
Mm-hmm.
Part of that we talked about last week, Paul, is that, and Pat, I don't know if you know, HR 127, it says that you have to have a psych evaluation for you, if you're married, your spouse, and if you have children, anybody living in your household. Everybody under the household has to have a psych evaluation if you want to purchase a new gun. So to point,
yeah, I got an answer for that, Carl.
Yeah,
I think every single person who runs as a politician should have a psych evaluation to find out if they're a sociopath, a psychopath, or just a freaking diabolical narcissist. Instead of having
Mic drop. Man,
there you go.
Mic drop.
After their names on the ballot. Jim Arnott, Republican psychopath.
Yes.
And then the guy running against him is John Q. Public, diabolical narcissist. Why pick the diabolical narcissist? I'm sick of psychopaths. I don't want them in government anymore.
But I'm with everybody on this room. They know I own guns. I like guns. I'm all for them. But again, to you, Jesse, I mean, you said you're for, look at the individual and fixing that person. Well, part of H127 is a psych evaluation, but all amongst with that is all the other bullshit that goes with it.
That's okay. That's not necessarily where I came from.
Hey, listen, guys, I want to say something before you go forward. You guys remember the movie Godfather 3?
Mm-hmm.
I've actually never seen it. Never seen it.
There was a great line in that movie. And that was when, don't remember the characters' names anymore, but the guy was explaining to another guy who was trying to get very big into the mafia that finance is a gun, politics is the trigger. They work hand in hand, and literally they complete a weapon. Politicians can be very dangerous, very, very dangerous. Literally by enacting laws, not enacting laws, doing nothing or doing something. And they need to be tempered by the Constitution. This is exactly what our founding fathers wanted, but they don't go by the Constitution anymore. We have to call them out when they stray from the Constitution, Jim Arnott. Are you listening? When you stray from the Constitution, you need to be called out. Everyone needs to be called out. And if they're in a public position, it doesn't matter if they're a state senator, a sheriff in a county, or a federal representative or senator, or someone on the Supreme Court. You need to be called out when you stray from the Constitution. And that's what we have to do. That is our calling. That is what the founding fathers, literally the haunting echo from all the books they wrote, all the biographies that were written, all the letters that were written between them, is calling us to do, is we have to stop this nonsense, of literally taking away our rights for their convenience or for cash. Okay, I'm sorry, rant over. Go ahead, Jeff.
You're good.
Okay. To address back what you were talking about, right. I'm not talking about a psychological evaluation of anybody.
Okay.
What I'm talking about, because what's happened to somebody has happened to somebody. I'm talking about getting somebody help, and you have to do this to prevent.
It doesn't have to be through legislation for gun reform.
I'm going to try to piece this together because this is fairly heavy for me.
No, I see what
I end up seeing. What I end up seeing, and I've done a lot of research on this, is that individuals that do harm to other individuals had horrible childhoods. It's been blatantly clear to me. This is where really bad people come from. Not like, okay, I'm not talking about people who are out just for more money. Like you're talking about the sheriff or whatever, who are just out narcissistically to build their legacy in whatever means necessary. That comes on a different scale. I'm talking about like from violent nature and treating other people poorly. Really comes down to childhood. So what you have to do is you have to start interacting with kids now and making sure that their parents aren't abusive in some way. And if their parents were abused, because that's what trickles down, is what I'm saying. That's what guns have nothing to do with anything. If you were to really get down to the root origin to make sure that parents weren't stressed out about where money was coming from, and things were better on a societal level,
punitive taxes,
so there's so much more that comes into that. Human beings are actually really fragile. Almost you can add up a human fairly quickly in the matter of like 10 questions. You can basically piece together a whole human being, and you'd be like, all right, well, this is why you're doing what you're doing. Because on question 3, you said that, oh, my dad beat the shit out of me. Oh, well, that's why you're an alcoholic. That makes sense. Your dad was an abusive alcoholic. And then it kind of comes down. So you can prevent that by shedding light into other things. It has nothing to do with, whether or not you shouldn't own a gun or anything like that. It's about prevention in the future. And so much shit that happens, like even though, oh man, my dad was a piece of shit, so I'm going to be a piece of shit. That's not.
So what HR 127 is doing is it's doing what you're asking, and that's not what you're asking for.
No,
but you're asking, how does the government fix that problem?
Because everybody has. Okay, so first of all, everybody will have struggle.
What I'm saying is that's the government's solution. Is they're putting it into a gun legislation act, and that's how they're going to find the solution to what you're talking about right now.
Horrible. Which I never wanted to be peace like that.
Exactly.
I never wanted to be peace like that.
For sure, but that's what's happening.
But there is a big portion of, as far as the betterment of humanity, and I'm not talking about anything to do with gun rights at this point.
For sure.
I'm just talking about the betterment of humanity. Let's start looking at, man, what systematically really had negative effects on individuals that cause negative effects on children.
Government.
You see a lot of Vietnam like two-term Vietnam vets come back from service, and then were extremely abusive to their wives and to their kids. And then their kids ended up out on the streets, and they talk about this. Like, they're still out on the streets now.
So,
like, kids from Vietnam, like...
What's the answer to your question? It's government.
No,
the government's the cause of all these issues.
Well...
For the most part.
I don't want to blame it directly on the government, but it's the decisions. It's the decisions of the...
It's the Federal Reserve.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's the Federal Reserve. Believe it or not, guys, I can make an argument in about 30 minutes that the Federal Reserve is the root of almost every single problem we have in the United States, including education.
I really like this, actually. I agree with you.
So the government is a symptom of the disease. The disease itself, the cancerous tumor that has rapid growth, is the Federal Reserve. I can prove it. We've done this before, I believe, on your podcast,
yes.
Paul.
Oh, yeah. Yes, we've talked about it. It almost comes up every time we do one with you, Pat.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I know I'm a one-trick pony.
But you have to go back. I had a conversation with Johnny on the way over here to where I'm like, dude, I don't think I have any new shit to say, because I keep saying the same thing over and over again, like every night on a podcast. And I'm like, man, what can I bring new to the podcast? But I only say the same shit over and over again. You know, I don't know if you've ever had to deal with that, but I'm like, man, I don't have any new shit. Like,
well, hopefully tonight I can get you guys into something else. Thinking that we've kind of wrapped up where we're at right now with the Second Amendment Preservation Act, what people need to do, check the description section down below this video, gang. All the information you need to contact your senator, to contact your sheriff, and to write a letter to Senator Schatz in the state of Missouri. This is for Missouri folks, by the way, is all down below. Please, please help us. If you care about your Second Amendment rights, this is pretty much it. We got draconian bills in 127. We just talked about it. We got draconian bills coming. This is how we defend ourselves and protect ourselves. You cannot do it on the federal level. Those guys are out of control. You cannot save them. The federal government is gone. Start thinking on your state level and your local level. And now.
So real quick, Pat, I just want to, I mean, we're a little over an hour, man. I'm just curious on your thoughts right now, because I know you got to be up early. It's completely up to you if you want to go. We can do however much time you want to do, but like this specific video, I only want to be the Second Amendment Preservation Act. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Because we hit it hard, and it's been a little over an hour, so that's just kind of where I'm at right there. If you're cool with that.
Okay, gotcha. Yep, I'm cool with it. Yep,
yeah, and I am. And again, I don't know if you want to go into silver. I mean, it may be another time.
No, actually, it's the stuff for the Second Amendment Preservation Act is far more important than the silver stuff.
For sure.
The silver stuff is important, but not as important as defending our rights.
It's your time, is all I'm saying.
The silver thing. Yep, understood. And I'll tell you what, though, we give people a teaser. And if any of you have watched Truth, Money, and Freedom podcast before, you'll all know I'm a silver bug. But there's a lot of silver bugs. I'm not the only one. And there's a massive movement, massive. Now, this is not a small thing. You guys heard of Wall Street Bets, right?
Oh yeah, we did a really good podcast on the GameStop. So,
okay, yep, okay. Well, now have you heard of Wall Street Silver? Okay, massive movement. It's not as big as Wall Street Bets in the aggregate, but it's big. And what we're doing is we're going after the bullion banks because of all the corruption in the U.S. banking system, bullion banking system, COMEX, CME, U.S. Treasury, J.P. Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Deutsche Bank, all these corrupt individuals that have been suppressing the price of precious metals for as long as they've had paper derivative products. And we're going after them by cleaning up all the physical silver there is on the market. And it's actually having a pretty big impact. Pretty big effect. So we won't go into the real big details on this. What I will tell you is you gentlemen could do a lot worse than to pick up some physical silver. I'm not a financial consultant. I'm just saying that it might go up tremendously in value here in the next year, and you won't be able to get it. So that is something to consider. Go to your local coin shop, pick up ounces of silver, and just buy and hold. So that's what the movement Silver Squeeze is about. And that's a big, massive movement. You guys want to talk about that next week or some other time? This is Wall Street Bets with GameStop 2.0. I am involved in this movement, and I have put out videos on it. But if you guys want to do a video sometime next week or the week after, I'd be very happy to do it.
Yeah. I would think not next week, but the week after would be perfect. We got a gentleman by the David Miano coming on next week. We're going to talk about some antiquities and ancient stuff. So,
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
I'm interested in that, by the way, because I've always been, as far as commodities go, that's low tier for me. And I think I've had that conversation with you too. Is as far as where I place that value goes. That would be really interesting for me.
Yeah, let's hit it up.
You know,
where the economy is going now, commodities are where you want to be when the economy gets worse. As they print more and more currency out of the Burr machine at the Federal Reserve, you don't want to be holding dollars or dollar derivatives. That means you don't want to really truly be in the stock market. It doesn't mean the stock market's going to collapse or go down.
I have like three questions,
it does mean
but I'm going to wait.
Is that it won't go up at the rate of inflation. You guys need protection. As much as we need protection from the federal government on all things Second Amendment, you need protection on what the Federal Reserve is about to do to your cash and your cash derivatives.
Man. Can I just ask you one of the three questions that cross my mind whenever it comes to the stock market?
I'll let you.
Am I just as corrupt as all the other people that are dealing in the stock market, me being a stockholder myself? No. Because sometimes it almost feels like it. For me, because there's some guilt. There's some guilt there. Whenever I make a bunch of money off of not a bunch of money, but a decent amount of money off of stock.
You must be joking. This is what you do. This is a giant casino, the American stock market.
And I know, but I feel bad.
Sometimes
because
you get lucky.
No, but everybody
take some
else
profits off the table and buy physical silver. Go ahead.
Man, I don't know. Like, just within that, I'm like, man, everybody else lost so much money, but I invested into the top or like three that I knew was going to get off in like 6 months. And I was right, and I made money. And I made money off people basically suffering. Basically is kind of what I did a little bit. So I have this little bit of guilt.
Yeah, it's
like
definitely
they
gambling.
lost money.
I don't know.
Gambling.
I don't know. I have that sense of guilt too, and I have a little bit of that because I was right on shit, and other people suffered.
Jesse.
You know. Yeah, no, I'm a piece of shit. I was a piece of shit before I started investing in the stock market.
We'll leave it at that.
I'll say that first and foremost.
We're gonna leave it at that, man, because we had a good hour.
Morally, it bothers me, but
we had a good hour with Pat on the show talking about the Second Amendment Preservation Act here in Missouri. We're going to have a lot of different links down below on where you guys can check that out. Pat, I greatly appreciate you coming on and spending some time on Talk Junkies to explain why it's so important to Missourians and other states in our country, why it's so important that we don't budge on any type of federal gun regulations that impose will against our Second Amendment right, man. Greatly appreciated, man.
You bet. I want to thank you guys for once again putting up with me and having me back once in a while. And I'm really sorry. I haven't done much. You guys have probably seen very little activity on my channel up until about a month ago. And that's really because Second Amendment Preservation Act and the Silver Squeeze thing is taking up a lot of my time. If I had to choose, if I didn't have enough time for both, the Second Amendment Preservation Act would be my top priority. Because remember now, I care about this place, and I definitely want to leave it in better condition than I came into it for my daughter and for my grandkids.
Hell yeah, man.
Pat, you're a Jedi. You're a Jedi.
Yes, sir.
You are a force to be reckoned with, man. I love the shit out of you, Pat. Every time you come on here, you really are.
I love you guys.
I love
too.
your vocal.
Carl, I'm starting to warm up on you, Carl. So it's going to take a few episodes,
Man.
I think. But
Well, I've seen you, Pat.
every
You haven't
time,
seen
man.
me. I watch the podcast every week, but
So yeah,
gotcha.
Dude, you're a force. You're a force, man, and I love you for that. I love you for that.
So keep on
Thank you, sir.
keeping on, man. Definitely keep on doing
You
that.
bet.
And we'll share the shit.
Hey,
out.
if you guys wouldn't mind to call your sheriffs in your respective counties tomorrow,
We'll
ask them where they stand.
I'll probably
on
be
the Second
pulled over
Amendment
by one
Preservation
tonight
Act.
on my way home, man. I'll send them a link just off my phone whenever they're looking at my insurance on my phone too. So
well, I'm just waiting for Sheriff Arnott to pull me over with, an unlicensed lightsaber or something.
Yeah, dude, you're literally you're what I think of as like current day American Jedi. You are that. You are that.
Yes.
Man. You really are.
Appreciate you guys.
Well, you guys can find Pat on Truth, Money, Freedom podcast on YouTube. Are you on and you're on BitChute now as well?
BitChute and Odyssey, also known as Library. But the big thing is our Discord server, which is very busy. We got a lot of new folks coming in with the Silver Squeeze. So we actually have a Discord server, a live voice chat. You guys can come in and talk anytime. I get in there as often as I can, usually while I'm driving. That's about as often as I can get in these days. But a lot of very, very, some people say, oh, TC, TC is my moniker, Chimichanga. You guys see my real name here. Since I am literally calling out Sheriff Arnott, I'm not hiding behind a moniker. I'm not hiding behind a screen name. You know who I am, Sheriff. We'll talk because we got to get this solved. But I guess at this point in time, I just really, really, really want people to just start being honest, intellectually honest about what they want. What is their desire? What do they want to do? And for me, I want more freedom. I want my daughter to have more freedom. I want my grandkids to have more freedom. And I think all of you guys want that too. And all of us together, we are the force.
Better world, more freedom, less governing power telling us how to live our lives, and maybe a better solution to problems, that are put upon us. Yep. Right? Seems simple, but it's not so simple. I want.
So in our Discord group, we cover this stuff. This kind of stuff we cover. Everything from, more freedoms, truth, money, and freedom. We chose those words for the name of our group for a reason. We represent all of those to the best of our abilities. Nobody's perfect, and I certainly am not. Jesus Christ was the only perfect man who walked the planet. But I will tell you that I'm trying my very best to leave this place better than I found it.
There you go.
Thank you, sir. Well, cheers, Pat. You have a good night, man, and thanks for joining Talk Junkies, brother.
Hey, thank you, guys. Take care.
You as well.
Okay, I've stopped my recording.
Okay, give me 1 second. I'll stop mine.
Okay.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We had Pat from Truth, Money, Freedom podcast. Like I said, you check out his YouTube channel over on YouTube, and he just told you where else you could find him. We'll put all those in the description below. The best thing you can do about this video, especially if you live in Missouri, if I try and share it on Facebook, it's not going to work, so it's going to take the force of all my friends to share that shit on Facebook, because unfortunately it is a way to reach people, but you just have to know how to do it. But the best thing you can do is share this video. When you hit the like button, act like it's a crown and you have a little magic coloring book. And when you start coloring, you hit the subscribe button. Please do that, because that also helps Talk Junkies be able to provide important knowledge to all the people out there. You can find us on iTunes. You can find us on Spotify, Podomatic, YouTube, all the places where you can find podcasts. We're there. I greatly appreciate any of our new listeners here on Talk Junkies. To all our junkies out there,
stay fly and ring the bell. I don't